classification, probably if you are to look at Vision 20, that we are looking at it because also most of us are doing our midterm review for our strategic plan. And the midterm review for our strategic plan ideally is reflecting on the performance of all what we took from MTP4, which carries the aspiration of Vision 20 that on 5-year basis, and even your own strategic plan. As you do that, remember you have also developed your STI strategy, which also you need to start asking yourself as you develop your work plan on annual basis, where are you? So looking at what I've talked about, you see science, technology, innovation is an enabler. It is clearly, as you harmonize your strategic plan, one of the documents to harmonize with, as per the directive, was basically to harmonize with as per the 5th generation guidelines of strategic plan, was MTP4, which captures science, technology, innovation, already meaning it's already part and parcel of what you're doing. And of course, that emphasizes the reason. Quickly, the implementation flow, because you report out of a successive implementation flow. The success or failure of your report is purely based on your implementation. And this is where we are saying today, we need to be borrowing experiences, we need to be sharing experiences, we need to be asking ourselves, what is the best implementation flow? What is the best implementation process that we should have? We have 1 quarter remaining. How can we then successfully put strategies in place to address all the gaps that we earn probably in 1st quarter, 2nd quarter, and 3rd quarter, so that by the time you address 4th quarter, where we are in currently, then you're able to recover, you're able to address, you're able to mitigate. So in terms of implementation flow, this is where we are asking ourselves again, we have an STI strategy or we are developing our STI strategy. At the end of it, we'll have those strategic issues. Those strategic issues are emanating from our own you have segregated matters from your strategic plan. You have already put them together. Maybe you are, as it was indicated, even if in stream A, by now you must have identified your strategic issues that you're implementing. Those strategic issues, then how do we implement them effectively? How do we then come to the point of saying, now we want to evaluate? Now you are reporting for that quarter, meaning you're evaluating the implementation process for the last 1st of January 2025 to that 1st March 2025. So in terms of that, how then were we able to do it? Were we able to cascade this? Were we able to ensure that activities are fully cascaded to all the process owners? Were we able to ensure champions, the focal person and champions were effectively were able to effectively ensure that the process owners know what needs to be done? Again, as we report now, because we are reporting by next week, and most of us, I know already, you have started preparing your report. Are we then utilizing the existing infrastructure, the existing flow within the organization to ensure that you are getting the right information from the process owners? Have we enabled these process owners to be able to give us critical information to help us develop reports that are credible, reports that are of quality? Because your output again becomes an input to the next process. So implementation flow is very important because you can only report from an effective and efficient implementation process. So you need to question that. You need always to ask yourself as you do your report, who is the source of this information? And does they meet the source, the information and the report that you are getting from whatever sources? Do they meet the requirement, the established requirement for those reports and activities? This is again an area where the focal person and champions, the STI Ministreaming Committee, comes in play to ensure that indeed what needs to be done is done. You work closely with performance contracting department. You're working very closely with planning department. You're working closely with all process owners so that as you report on those 7 tables or those number of tables, either from HR, from finance, whichever area, then of course you are doing it from the right perspective. So quickly, I've already talked about this shows the integrated process. You must always operate within this integrated process because, for example, the output, some of the output from when you do like midterm review for your strategic plan, where you developed, whether the PC which comes from your strategic plan, the PC which is also the carrier of your STI Ministreaming indicator, we must get it right. And as we have been told moving forward, we are now concentrating more on the result. We are looking at output. We are looking at outcomes of what we are doing. The relationship, we are looking at the relationship between the input and output. When we put a certain amount or when we dedicate a certain source of, let's say, income, source of time, whatever it is as an input, then what is the percentage actualization of what we are getting in terms. From that diagram now, once you talk about implementation, then you are addressing basically mainstreaming of the STI. This mainstreaming again helps you. This again helps you to define the process. So ask yourself as a focal person, ask yourself as a champion in terms of the role that I'm playing today in my organization. In this mainstreaming cycle, where am I? Have you been able, the indicator already has been captured where in your performance contract? As you said, you don't operate in exclusion. You operate in a process, in a circle where there are many other processes taking place. You have performance contracting, we have a strategic plan, we have our quarterly report now as we are doing it. We have the reviews that we are supposed to do, and I've seen most of the MDAs now, they're also reviewing their strategic, the STI strategies and all that. At the end of it all is to ensure effective and successive implementation. For this to happen, you basically have to look at the strategic issues that you have developed. Those strategic issues, you must have broken them down basically to the area of concern, the area of your mandate. Out of that, you have the goals. You can have, sometimes you may have formulated KRIs which carry the key result areas, which basically reflect the objective and the strategies and the activities and all that. So basically, for you to talk about effective implementation, you must have planned it well. You must ensure that you have developed the right objective, the right strategic objective. You must ensure that you have the strategies and activities so that monitoring and evaluation now is purely anchored on what you plan, on what was set. And what you said, what you have planned was basically in this sequence. You started from identifying the real issues that you want to address. And again, I've seen questions sometimes emanating from MDAs in terms of when, for example, when you're reporting, when you have identified your strategic issues, the thematic areas that you have committed into, then it simply means that becomes the basis of developing your work plan from the strategic implementation matrix of your plan. You're able to develop that and then able to implement quickly. Why again, anchoring it as part of your core mandate. I've already talked about it. And this is very critical. I think we need, this is a matrix, the performance contracting matrix for non-commercial institution, just for purposes of our understanding of this session. You look at, when you look at the first criteria, financial and stewardship, this is basically where you are now declaring the resources, the budgeting process and all that. And when you look at it, the next criteria is service delivery. And service delivery is basically as a result of implementation of your core mandate. Where is STI mainstreaming is part of your core mandate, meaning then if it is part of your core mandate, you have allocated resources for it as at least where we indicate like at least 2% of your overall budget. And if you have done that, then the output of that, the measurable output of that is service delivery, which is criteria number B, which measures the services, the service delivery. It will measure your ability to be able to offer those services efficiently and effectively. And that way we have digitalization, for example. It also gives your customers, it gives your stakeholders an opportunity to interact with your services, then complain or compliment or give you a feedback. And that way you have resolution of public complaints. So B basically, for you to get an effective B, you must have clearly got it right in C, which is core mandate. And if you look at that core mandate, is where we have science, technology, innovation. So efficient and effective implementation. And that way we need to get it very right to ensure that we are doing the right things that we committed. Because out of them, they'll be tested. What you're doing here will be tested under B, which is service delivery. In other ones, the services, once you do science, technology, innovation, are we able to feel it within the services that you're offering? Are we able to ensure those services we infuse creativity, innovation, efficiency, and effectiveness? Can we say organization operational efficiency has increased in terms of this indicator you're doing under core mandate, which ideally the Wanjiko, the service, your stakeholders and your customers are able to. That way we do business engineering. That's why we do digitalization, for example. You do digitalization, then business engineering is part of digitalization currently. And that's where, again, you measure. That's where you put into application technology. That way you are putting in implementation innovations for you to be able to effectively and efficiently attain what you want. So for 2024, 2025, I'll just these are the impact. I'll just indicate that because one of the key deliverable for us today is basically to understand the impact, is basically for us to accept and have the best practice out of it. You have seen with implementation for the number of years that it has been done, for many of us who have implemented from first quarter to now, that one of the main impact that has come out when we develop clearly our STI strategy, then we are able to get it right in terms of implementation and planning, and then of course monitoring and evaluation. So the success story is out there. You'll be able to interact with it. But what we are basically saying is that we should be able, the focus is output, the focus is outcomes, the focus is the real value addition that goes to the one who is receiving your service. So basically with that, we'll look at the champions and focal persons who are the people we have today. It's a requirement. We should have focal person and champions for you to be able to implement this indicator. And that is very, very clear in the guidelines. The role of the focal person should be one, but in champions can be many. And a focal person, basically you are in charge of the indicator within your organization. You provide the support. You ensure that sensitization and capacity building takes place. In other words, the slide that I covered with you about successful STI mainstreaming within the organization, in the complex environment of the organization, where you have strategic plans, where you have the master plans, where you have the work plans, organization and corporate work plans and all that, you're able to integrate, segregate matters STI and ensure that they are done successfully and effectively. You coordinate development and implementation of STI strategy. Even in stream A, you are developing the STI strategy. That is the work of focal person. Even in stream B, you are implementing, and that's again the work of the focal person. And implementation, remember, we have talked about the implementation process flow. We must get it right, because out of implementation is where we get accurate data, is where we get credible information, is where we ensure that there is the output from the various process owners captures that. We establish and implement monitoring and evaluation mechanism, promote collaborations. Collaboration is a key issue in stream B, and even in stream, it will be part of the issues that can be addressed in stream A. You promote STI business matters and ensure quarterly report. We are reporting deadline is next week for reporting, so we ensure it is the role of the focal person to ensure these reports are reported successfully. Who should be there? You should either be the qualification, either top or middle level, but of course conversant with matters research, science, technology, innovation. And I know this was observed. We emphasize, the emphasis is that indeed the focal person should be in charge. The failure and success of STI mainstreaming in an institution is the ability of the focal person to ensure that it is effectively and efficiently cascaded, implemented, monitored, and evaluated within the period under review. Also, maybe as I conclude on focal person, we have talked about STI strategies. Your responsibility to ensure it is developed, it is implemented, and indeed development of implementation matrix and work plans are done as per your plan. The next are champions. Champions can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't, the number is purely based with the unique size of the institution. And this ensure day-to-day implementation. They are critical to ensure that at the lower levels of the organization, that the indicator is implemented. They facilitate cascading. Cascading is a critical aspect of successful implementation of the indicator. Prepare and forward quarterly report. Report from HR, report from finance, report from other areas. This is the role of the champions. And these are critical because they do everything downstream to ensure that what needs to be done is done. They undertake continuous monitoring and evaluation. Their monitoring and evaluation is not anchored on quarterly reports. They do it day to day. You need to gather information in your respective area. Ensure the information is credible. Otherwise, if we have a wrong information emanating from an institution, it is the responsibility of the champions to ensure that the information you are receiving for your report, for the report that you're reporting on, then captures the aspiration. Ensure continuous STI capacity building, promote STI committed activities, and provide support and all that. So that is the work of the STI of the champions. The qualification is just commitment, passion to transform and lobby others. That is very, very important. Most of us as MDAs, we are running quite a number of change management programs, and in them always we have champions who help in such. Eligibility. I just want to summarize eligibility by just saying as you have said, STI mainstreaming is an enabler number 2 under Vision 2030. It is clearly captured as such under MTP4, Medium Term Plan 4, and the government agenda. So if you are contributing to Vision 2030, if you are contributing to MTP4, then you have a role to play in science, technology, and innovation. You may need to have, you may have a role either in technology, you have a role in innovation, you have a role in science, you could have a role in research, or you could have a role cutting across. So basically that's eligibility, but the list of who is eligible is shared. So basically, because you have been taken through the indicator, I'll just talk about only the enabling environment. For you to do this indicator, by summary, we need to have a focal person, we need to have champions, we need to have a work plan, which is already provided for, and of course, training of champion and sensitization of the stakeholders. You need to have the capacity. This is an enabling environment for you to be able to implement the indicator. I'll quickly look at stream A. I think I've been taken through it, but basically stream A is where you are developing strategic issues. We had a question yesterday, is it possible to develop and implement? And I think that has been answered. You can identify the strategic issues within the first and second quarter, and you can start implementation in third and fourth quarter. It is achievable because, again, the template is provided. Stream B, again, these are people already with the plan, and it has been explained. You have been taken through, and there will be a presentation basically to take you slowly on what are the requirements for you when we talk about collaborations and developing technologies, because again the criteria of evaluation is also anchored on the same. In terms of monitoring and evaluation, we basically it's good to share the key achievement in terms of your expectation. STS strategies, we have realized over time. And again, for them that are still developing the STS strategy, we have not been able to complete. The strategy should be able to, it has over time, it is clear that with the ability of the STS strategies capturing the objectives, then this enhances compliance and implementation. And I've given examples, quite a number of examples. The point here is the STS strategies that you developed with clear objective that EROP operationalize the same, then EROP see you across to be able to implement what is expected. Some of the challenges, and I'll just address too quickly, of implementation of a period of time, whether it is this year, whether it's the last 3 years that we implement. We have issues of low budgetary allocation, but again, to address this quickly, you are looking at what you have and what are you able to allocate? What are you spending? Like, for example, this third quarter, how much was spent in the area of research, science, technology, innovation in any of those domains in the entire ecosystem? Formulating the STI strategies again and implementation. And that's why I've really taken time to talk about the implementation flow, because that is where we have a lot of challenges. But at the end of it, all these challenges can be solved by sensitization like this one. You can contact NACOSTI directly. But the point is the success and failure of STI mainstreaming, basically for your institution, success or failure of it is how you capture this in your STI strategy. Committees, we want to encourage you as a best practice. The focal person and champions form an STI mainstreaming committee so that you manage all matters emanating or matters around STI mainstreaming. This will be very important for you. Continuous capacity building, ensure that you continuously, as a best practice again, you're able to continuously build the capacity. And then, of course, this depends, matters STI mainstreaming in your organization. So this is very important. Ensure effective response feedback. Again, you get feedback from NACOST. Also cascade the feedback and ensure, like, you are reporting for third quarter. You are addressing all the feedback for second quarter. And of course, capacity building and compliance with 21st performance contracting guidelines. So this engagement with MDs has an impact. It helps address emerging issues. All emerging issues, as I've said, they are always addressed, and we are able to get a way forward. Leveraging again on the successes of the last 3 years as we have implemented, so that we can embed in the system, so that as you report for that quarter, we are building it from the experiences of first quarter, second quarter, those feedbacks internally and externally. The external feedback is from NACOST. You also have your internal feedback. So the champions and the focal person should establish a mechanism to solicit feedback internally from your process owners, so that any challenges can form the basis of your training, capacity building for them or for you, or addressing those areas. Ladies and gentlemen, If you're able to look at that, then I believe it shall help us in terms of effective and efficient implementation. There is a great improvement, that's a fact, but improvement can only be there when we look at the past experiences and we input on it. These are the number for us to ensure that all the gaps that you'll be identifying over the period of time on quarterly basis are addressed, and you're able to do the same. I think that is the end of my presentation, and thank you so much. I'll be there in case you have any question, you have any clarification to see.